Slight delay. We are going to begin the Committee on Budget and Fiscal Review as a subcommittee as our members return to the Capitol and come to committee. We have 4 assembly bills on our agenda today. 3 are trailer bills and 1 is a Budget Act Junior. We'll go in numeric order starting with AB 11. Good morning, Ms. Costa. This is Public Resources Trailer Bill.
The committee will be hearing several trailer bills this morning as well as a budget bill junior. I would note that the majority of the bills before you have been either on the Department of Finance's website or heard in your subcommittee or in conference committee. As you noted, we will start with AB 1611, which is the Resources Trailer Bill. The Resources Trailer Bill would do all of the following. It would authorize per diem payments to non-governmental entities who participate in stakeholder working groups related to timber regulation. It requires the Natural Resources Agency to submit an annual report on Proposition 1 implementation beginning January of 2017. It requires the Natural Resources Agency to submit a report on lessons learned from the state's response to the drought by January of 2020. It strengthens Cal EPA's efforts to more fully integrate environmental justice into enforcement and environmental laws. It increases fees for the renewal and initial issuance of environmental license plates. It requires the Energy Commission and ARB to report on and model various issues related to natural gas tracking and best practices for oil and gas operations. It makes various changes to the processes to obtain and pay for lake and stream bed alteration agreements. It authorizes new California Endangered Species Act permit application fees and increased penalties. It extends the time for the general fund to repay the loan from the Oil Spill Response Trust Fund and ensures that those increased fee collections are not triggered because of this outstanding loan. It authorizes the Department of Water Resources to utilize design-build procurement for the Salton Sea projects. It extends the sunset date for a testing program that evaluates and reports on workers' pesticide exposure. It includes multiple cleanup provisions related to the recent transfer of the drinking water program to public health from the Water Board. It consolidates public water systems and appropriates from the Water Rights Fund. It provides clarification on water diversion rights for water storage. It increases the per diem rates for the Regional Water Board members. It extends by 6 months the due date of a report on treated wood waste. It requires the Department of Toxic Substances Control to evaluate lead-acid batteries as part of the Safer Consumer Products Program. It eliminates the flat fee option for permitting hazardous waste facilities, also with the Department of Toxic Substance Control. And lastly, it provides clarification on various seed laws. With that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Costa. With regard to the Water Board per diem increase that you mentioned, it will be going from $100 to $250. Do you know the last time that was raised?
It was back in the 1980s.
So it's been quite a while.
Yes, it has.
This probably barely, if keeps up with the cost of
It's
living.
pretty close to what it would be if there had been a cost of living increase every year.
Thank you. And then could you talk to us a bit more about this California Endangered Species Act fees? Who will be paying, the reason for the fee, and what that fee will be used for?
So, Amanda Martin, Department of Finance. The CESA, California Endangered Species Act fee is part of a package to help solve the environmental license plate fund structural deficit. We have been before you for the last several years with problems in that fund. And so who would be paying this would be anybody who would need to do environmental species take permit. This could be local governments. This could be builders, anyone with who's going to build a road bridge that's going to fall in a stream and endanger species like that. The part of the Environmental License Plate Fund solution was a mix of this new fee, fund shifts moving to general fund or other fund sources. So this is part of a package solution to solve the deficit in that fund.
And I would note, if I may, Mr. Chair, that the other component of this particular proposal is that it increases the fines paid for violations of the Act as well.
So we have an Endangered Species Act, obviously for a reason. We're protecting endangered species, and so this fee would go to mitigate any damage or any illegal activity against these
And-
endangered species.
Yeah, and for the cost of the department in reviewing all of those permits, going out multiple times to review the sites. Up until now, that has been free to anyone looking for a permit.
Do we have some certainties that any additional fees from this fund would make their way to the general fund? Because you mentioned that's one of the reasons there's a shortfall.
With the environmental license plate fund, so we're shifting the costs from that support the Department of Fish and Wildlife from the environmental license plate fund to this fee.
Okay. Senator Nielsen, Senator Morlock.
Well, you know, we have a lot of very major things going on here, major, at the last minute, the very last minute. No major policy committee hearings, but major things, major impositions. I'd like to talk a little bit more about some of them. We've talked exhaustively about these per diem issue for the water board. Can you assure me that every other board and commission are not going to now demand similar increases based on the fact that theirs have not been increased commensurately over the years? Will we not absolutely, unequivocally expect in next year's budget and the year after that, every other board that gets per diem demanding increases above $100? Doesn't this just break the dam?
Well, of course, we can't make any such assurances, Senator, but I would note, as the chair noted, for the water board specifically, this has been the same per diem they've had since the 1980s. There's a significant amount of workload associated with serving on these boards, and I think it is a proposal that hopes to encourage people into this line of public service. And, you know, I would characterize it as a modest per diem increase for this entity.
This historically, though, these positions have not been looked at as a job, full-time job. It has been looked at as service. And now we are elevating it and sanctifying it as a job. And this is a comment to the public, who I hope some of are watching. You are now inviting a whole new level of government, be more formalized, and a paid level of government. What does it mean in the Timber Regulation Forest Restoration Fund per diem, a quote, reasonable per diem to non-government members for attendance at a meeting of the related advisory committee? Who determines what a reasonable per diem is? Who makes that determination? Does the legislature make that determination?
We have revenue, or we have assumptions about how much we have appropriated for that reasonable per diem. So it's you know, based on some of their costs, and this is in the timber harvest amendment. It's specifically for members of the stakeholder groups that are not members of public agencies, so they don't get their salary in order to attend these work groups. And so this would offset some of their costs to make sure that we have representation outside of government on these.
So the Natural Resources Agency determines what their reasonable per diem will be? Who is the authority? Who says you'll get $150, $500, $300? Who says what the per diem will be?
I believe it is the Natural Resources Agency.
Okay. Shouldn't the legislature make that determination?
By approving this, the Natural Resources Agency and the timber harvest, all the timber would have to stay within their budget, so they aren't able to willy-nilly, you know, decide it's going to be a larger amount, or that would create a hole in their budget. So it will be kept to a low amount.
Well, understand there's a lot of latitude that they have with this timber tax, I call it. It's not really a fee. That's still being litigated, of course. But there's a lot of latitude within how they assess that fee as to what is a inhabitable structure. And there are teams of people going out there trying to find more structures to levy that fee to. The point is, to me, this is not a reasonable way to do the government's business. And what is the reason for, in the hazardous waste fees, changing from the flat fee to a fee for service?
This proposal hopes to align the actual workload that the department utilizes for the permits to the cost. And I would note that this particular proposal was part of the independent review panel for the Department of Toxic Substance Control that the legislature approved. This was one of the recommendations coming out from that independent review panel.
But it would appear to me that that gives, again, a lot of latitude for the department to just run in whatever they want to and call it a fee.
There is some latitude for the department, but the department will be estimating the cost for processing a permit at the beginning of the process, and it will work with the applicant on those estimates. If the applicant disagrees with the cost that it's billed for, there is an appeals process.
Under the stream bed alteration, it limits fees to $5,000 for a single project rather than an agreement, and changes the authorization of a graduated fee schedule from the director of the department to the department. Explain to me what that really does. What does it mean shifting from the director to the department?
The modifications of the lake and stream bed alteration language, currently, we view this as the adjustment from an agreement to a single project as a correction, because current practice charges per project, and it's clearly noted on the department's website. From the director to the department would allow for the director to have some delegation authority.
Understood. And you understand this is a very, very controversial issue right now, highly litigated. Okay, well, I'm afraid you have just made it extraordinarily easy for me to advocate a no vote. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Morlock? Thank you, Mr. Before we get to you,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
if I may, we're first going to establish our quorum. If you could call the roll, please.
Leno,
Here.
Nielsen. Here. Allen. Here. Anderson. Here. Bell. Block. Here. Placer. Hancock. Here. Mitchell. Monning. Morlock. Present. Wynn. Pan. Here. Pabley. Roth. Here. Stone. Here. Wolk. We have a quorum. Glaser.
Thank you, colleagues. We do have our quorum. And before we move on to Senator Morlock, I just wanted to confirm a couple things relative to his questions. I think it was a couple years ago, we actually did pass a tax, not a fee. Was it called the Timber Regulation and Forest Restoration Tax? I think it was a 2/3 vote.
Yes.
Okay. And how many times, how often does the water board meet? So we can get a sense.
The regional boards or the state? The regional boards generally meet monthly. If there's not a lot of activity in a certain region in a certain month, there may not be a meeting.
So this $100 to $250 per diem would be for these regional boards?
Correct. It applies to the regional boards.
So,
And it allows for 1 day of preparation, as well as the 1 day of attendance at a meeting.
so that would be 2 days of pay per month?
Up to 2 days of pay per month.
So potentially, so currently, it's $200 per month, $2,400 per year, and it would go to $500 per month, $6,000.
I don't think current law allows for the day of prep. I would have to double
Oh, it
check
doesn't
on
require, it
that.
doesn't pay for the day of prep.
Yeah, I would need to check. I'm a little bit unclear on that. What the language does do is it maintains a statewide cap, but the current law has a regional cap on each regional board. This bill would instead provide a statewide cap so that if one region has more activity than another, that there could be more paid to one board than another.
I just wanted to clarify that this is even with the increase, and again, you said it may just adjust for cost of living over the past 3 decades.
It's, right, it's close to that.
If that for someone to offer time and travel, this is indeed, I think, public service. $2,000 a year, $6,000 a year, no one's living off of, or certainly not getting rich off of it. So I think that is appropriate. Senator Morlock, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I come from county land, and we're required to only charge a fee based on what it actually costs. We can't make a profit. So we have studies that tell us and justify fee increases. Is that done in state land?
I don't know if you're speaking to a particular state agency, but the Water Board, for example, with its water right fees and its water quality fees, annually does a review of what its costs are, and it's tied to the appropriation and what the revenues would be needed to support that appropriation. And it has, extensive stakeholder meetings regarding those fees to justify the future adjustments, whether they be an increase or a decrease in a given year.
Yeah, you also referred to the independent review panel for the toxic substances. So is that something that we rely on, an independent study to justify any fee increase?
I think that this would have been proposed with or without the independent review panel's recommendations. The idea is to allow the department to recapture its costs, the costs that it incurs in processing the permits.
So then do they ask the state auditor to come in and review that study to make sure that it's a valid request?
Well, it's a new process. So, that in terms of the auditor's role, that has not been established yet. But as noted previously, the department will prepare an estimate for the applicant, and if the applicant disagrees with the estimate or with what it is billed at a later time, those bills are appealable.
So we don't really need a justification other than a department's request to raise fees.
Well, the department will have to just identify the job classification that was used to process the permit and the number of hours and what was done during that time period.
Okay, on the water boards, Mr. Chair, I've been on a lot of boards, and I would get my $100 per diem, but I never got a $100 per diem for the study. So when we're looking from going from 100 to 250, we're actually looking at going from 100 to 500, which is like a 500% increase.
That wasn't confirmed. So this isn't changing the policy. You're not quite sure what the policy is, which would be beneficial.
I'm not fresh on that. I apologize.
Well, the policy is you don't pay for study day.
Right.
And so this is new.
Oh, no, this won't pay for a study day. It does not change the policy. It just changes the per diem. So whatever per diem's paid now will be increased, but there's no new.
So right now they're getting paid for a study day.
We don't believe so, but we're going to get that
Right, so that's what I'm saying. So if they were to get $100 a month, now they're looking at getting $500 a month.
No, that policy is not changing. We don't believe that the study day
I'm
is
sorry,
paid for.
I'm just reading my material, and that's what it
Sure.
says.
No, but we're going to get clarification on that. But what I can assure you 100% without a doubt is we're not changing the policy, we're just adjusting the per diem.
Okay, good, because I'm concerned about the reverberations. Okay, well, because I just find that people are small children in adult bodies, and the first thing they say is, that's not fair. This state water board has a per diem of $250, and we're only getting $100, and it goes from there. We just create a problem. And in Orange County, we've had articles on water board members that get a $100 fee for going to a tree planting, and then they go to meet with staff on another day, get another $100, and they're milking this thing. And so if it goes up 250%, that gets to be kind of crazy. So I want to be just careful based on what I've seen.
Let's also clear the air here, because there is viewing public, that this is not about for someone planting a tree at a photo op.
Right. I'm
This
just
is
saying
for the
there have
hard
been some
work of a
abuses
water bird.
that kind of can trail out. I want to prevent that.
But the policy question I would ask back to you is, if we haven't adjusted this per diem for cost of living increase over the past 3 decades, when do you think it's appropriate? 4 decades, 5 decades?
And how do we do it? I would say I'd start at 125, 150 over a period of time. I wouldn't go from 100 to 250.
Well, that would make an argument that once we adjust it, maybe we should just have a cost of living escalator and it sort of goes up.
Yeah, then you wouldn't have this
This large
debate that you and I are having right now.
Okay. Did you have another question? I noticed-
Two more.
Okay, go right ahead.
Environmental license plate fee, is that just for like the whale tail license plate, or is it for all personalized license plate? Is there a distinctive difference?
It's all environmental license plates, so it's not necessarily just the whale tail. There's multiple.
Like the Tahoe, but not, okay, so it's just for those specifically. And then the safe water, the safe drinking water program fee, that's going up 28%. Do we have a justification study for that? Or are we going to say we haven't touched it for 30 years?
No, for the most part, that fee increase is needed to support BCP's budget change proposals that were requested by the legislature.
Again, I'm sorry.
For the most, that fee increase is mostly tied to budget change proposals that were approved by the legislature.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Morlock. Before we go on to Senator Nielsen and then Senator Glazer, Senator Nielsen had a follow-up question.
Yeah, let me clarify my understanding, and this is based on very thorough discussion with the representative of the Water Board in Budget Subcommittee. In requesting this increase, we had long discussions, and I can see some justification for an increase for the water regional boards, all right? Certainly not this one. But my specific question was, and yes, it was for a preparation day and for the board day. But then I specifically asked, could there be per diem granted for other days, such as seminars or site visits? The answer was yes. And then I said, well, what is the criteria for which then you would grant? Do you have some kind of basis for approving? And there wasn't any. We're going to be working that out. That's how it was said. It was left open. In other words, how many days you would get. The cap that was, the limit which was applied was the total budget for the entire, all of the boards per diem, which now I believe it's $375,000. I think when with the $500, it was a lot greater, $750,000. I think it was $750,000. And then when we were going to cut that back, then we asked that that be cut back, I think, to $350,000. So the only limit was the cap, but the number of actual days, there was no restriction on.
And the cap was reduced to reflect the action. So the original cap was, I think, set around $756,000, and the revised trailer bill language reduces the cap to, I think, $387,500.
But you can get more information, but that was my understanding. It was an in-depth inquiry in the Budget Subcommittee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Nielsen. Senator Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, after hearing competing conversations, I just want to make sure I understand the Regional Water Board. You're considering increasing the stipend from $100 to $250 per day. In my staff report, it says that they will get paid for a day for review, but you're saying that they won't. Is that correct?
No, I was not saying. What I did say is that the policy as to when the per diem is granted does not change. What the current policy is, we're going to get some clarification.
Okay. So is there a cap to the number of days that a water board member can claim a per diem?
Yes, it's 1 day of preparation and 1 day of attendance at a meeting. So it's up to 2 days.
So,
And along with the statewide cap on the per diem.
okay, so I'm going with Senator Nielsen's argument. If they go to a seminar someplace where they're discussing water issues, they can't claim another $250 stipend if they're there for a few hours.
Not if they've already hit their cap.
Exhausted their 2 days. So 2 days is the max. Okay. And then just real quick for the new fee for the Endangered Species Act incidental take permits. The range of the fee is $7,500 to $35,000. This is going to be imposed on public and private projects. And then it says, at the end of my staff report, it says that the fee is meant to backfill the $2.5 million in current funding for the Environmental License Plate Fund, which has an ongoing structural imbalance. So what's the nexus to the environment by raising this fee? Or is it just, like it says, just to fund a license plate?
Well, it's part of the package to fix the structural deficit in the Environmental License Plate Fund. It's also the nexus is that this is the costs for the Department of Fish and Wildlife to process those permits, review them, go out, see the sites, that currently there has been no no charge for. That basically the Environmental License Plate Fund has been funding those positions to do that work, and now they will be supported by this fee.
Okay, thank you.
Could I add one comment? Just looking at the language, Senator Stone, there is one provision that says, in addition to the compensation, each member shall be reimbursed for necessary traveling and other expenses incurred in the performance of official duties. So I think that could leave room for attendance at seminars, if that's, as long as that's considered an official duty.
So you're saying they could get a stipend for going to a meeting in addition to travel expenses, above and beyond the two meeting cap?
The language, it looks like it could leave room for that. And I do recall from what Senator Nielsen, restatement of the conversation in subcommittee, that is what the Water Board testified.
I only bring that up, Mr. Chairman, because coming from the county government as well, we sat on a number of sub-governmental committees, and it was not uncommon that if you were just to go to a ribbon cutting for an opening of a new off-ramp or a new habitat area for Riverside Conservation Agency, you would receive a stipend if you were there for 10 minutes, 1 hour, or all day long.
You were never such a recipient.
I was a beneficiary.
You were.
Openly a beneficiary, yes.
Okay.
I didn't make the policies, but I was a part of it. My concern is that, increasing this down to $250, the stipends were much lower, of course, in the county. But the point of the matter is that if you're going to pay this kind of a stipend, it should be for some comprehensive work. And all these sub-governmental agencies, whether it was the Riverside Conservation Agency, the Riverside County Transportation Commission, they put a cap on the number of meetings cumulatively. So you knew you could actually budget for a year, because you could have somebody claim 20 days that they're doing business related to that particular agency and collecting that stipend. So that's why I was asking if you had a max.
I would just note, the cap here is just slightly different. Rather than per individual or what events they're attending, there is a statewide expenditure cap, which Senator Nielsen referenced during his comments as well. So there is a practical limit here. It's just slightly differently structured.
So how many water boards are there in the state of California?
9.
9. So are they going to be communicating with one another on a month-to-month basis to make sure they don't exceed the cap, or once they exceed?
The State Water Board will monitor that.
Yeah. And then, $378,000 is not a whole lot of money when you're talking about statewide. What if they run out of money in 9 months and they can't even hold a regular water board meeting when they need to do the citizens' business? They come back for ancillary?
From what I've seen, the Water Board does a very good job of monitoring our expenses, and I think that they would stay on track. And if for some reason, that's not the case, then the service will continue and not be reimbursed.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Stone. We have Senator Glazer. Senator Allen, did you have a question? First, we're going to Senator Glazer, but if you'd like.
It's okay. My senior colleague.
It was along the lines of this. I'm just kind of curious about how you match this statewide cap. So you say there's 9 total water boards. How many members of each water board?
It's either 7 or 9. I think it's 7, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. My tendency, I think my tendency is to, when you have these largely are they getting any other stipend besides the per diem?
From the state?
Or from their local government?
Not that I'm aware of. The regional boards fall under the umbrella of the state.
Because that seems the big difference. If you're a member of the Board of Supervisors and you're getting a salary to do that work, and your membership on these various other boards is part of your work as a supervisor that you're getting a salary for, that seems very different than someone who's effectively working for free and getting a per diem for the days that they're working. But I think that would be relevant. If they're getting a salary or some sort of, if they're getting a salary to serve on the water board, then that would be a different story, I would think. But we don't know.
Generally these people work outside of.
That's my understanding.
And the idea was to, behind the increase was to make it feasible and affordable for people from a diversity of backgrounds to participate in the board and to not give up a day of pay for missing work.
Yeah. Water board, it sounds like torture to me, It's
And I would just note, Mr. Chair, that as has been the case in discussions here within the legislature, these are highly complex issues that the board members have before them, and that often it takes days of preparation for them to prepare for the issues before them. And so we think it's appropriate, given the complexity of the issue, which certainly water in California is nothing if not complex.
My philosophy has always been no one's life is lacking a commission or a board. It's all public service. Senator Glazer.
Mr. Chair. My question revolves around this endangered species fee that we've talked about a little bit, because I'm left a little confused. On one hand, it was explained that the reason we were doing this was because we had a deficiency in the fund, and that this is a place where a new fee could be established that would help support the department. And what confused me about that is that I thought these fees by law are required to be applicable to the actual work that's performed. And so that's what left me confused, is that, is it that we weren't collecting it before, even though we had the right to collect it?
No, sir, we have never collected this fee before. We use the proceeds from the Environmental License Plate Fund, which is, obviously, when you buy an environmental license plate, part of the of your fee goes into that fund. It was used to support the positions of the Department of Fish and Wildlife, who right now go out and do this permitting work. The department does track the time they spent on these spend in total on these incidental take permits based on the time that they spend on these. The level of the fee was established. There are also exceptions for some timber harvest plans, for voluntary mitigation, where the whole point of the project is to mitigate the impact on the endangered species. Those were added through the subcommittee hearing process. So
Okay, so what was the deficit in the fund?
The deficit in the fund was up to $8 million.
Okay, and so is your conclusion that this new fee schedule is going to cover that $8 million deficit?
Not in and of itself, no. No, this is only one piece of the solution for the deficit. This is $1.5 million. We shifted $4 million ongoing general fund for support of another program. There are some one-time costs that will come out to help that. There's the increase in the environmental license plate. There's some shift for parks to another fund, which we will come back next year and talk about that fund. But this is one of about 4 or 5 pieces to solve the environmental license plate structural deficit.
Right, so the objection that I'm hearing from my county is that they don't have a problem with a fee that's tied to the work that's provided, but that there hasn't been that information provided to them in terms of the budget for this work and how it's directly applicable to the applications that the department's going to receive. So they see this as a brand new fee, not tied to work involved, and they raise the issue of where you're basing the fee on project costs when there could very well be projects that have high costs but that don't have a lot of environmental impact because they're infill or they're between freeway lanes or things like that. And so they're going to get a flat fee is being established here without really direct applicability to the work that's involved. How would you answer that?
I would say that there are many different ways to structure a fee. We have chosen to take the amount of the workload and try and spread it so that each project, based on the size of the cost of the project, pays a share, and that that is.
That's a broader. But you just said that's a broader look at your budget, not about a project, not about the work that's directly attributable to that project application.
As I said before, the department does document the amount of time in total that they spend on incidental take permits, and that is how this number was derived.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, I don't, maybe you can help enlighten a new member, which is our ability to provide any additional amendments to what's being proposed today. What rights or abilities do we have, if at all?
So it's a very worthy question. This particular trailer bill, and trailer bills in general, are the implementing language, the implementation language for the decisions that were made through represented by appropriations in the budget bill. So I can tell you, to my knowledge, there's nothing in this energy, in this resources trailer bill that was not discussed through the budget subcommittee process, through the budget process, and through the conference committee process. So this is really completing our work that we've already started and had made decisions upon. So in terms of the greater scope of the budget and the agreement that was reached between the governor, each of the two houses, what you're seeing here today in this trailer bill is a part of that process.
So for example, as Senator Allen raised, if we decided that we didn't want to make that per diem bump applicable to those who were full-time public elected officials, we couldn't really do that today to make that amendment to exclude those individuals from receiving that per diem.
You, of course, have every right to bring up any amendments you would like. My recommendation, if you were to make that motion, would be to defeat it specifically because the time for that would have been earlier in the process.
And that's something that would have been discussed by the Budget Subcommittee at number 4? Is that, no?
Lois's, Senator
Lois's,
Wolf's.
okay.
Yep.
And the same with this endangered species fee. This was discussed in subcommittee. Great. Thank you very much.
Okay.